we tend to complicate things more than necessary. You have to get to the core of what you actually want. And that's actually hard to do. It takes time. It's not something you can really rush.
Every day I'm changing, I'm taking small steps, and every time I'm falling, I go to new depths. I will become who I've always been.
Welcome home, inspired entrepreneurs. Have you ever felt like the more your business grows, the more complicated it becomes? You're not imagining it. More ideas, more opportunities, more things demanding your attention, and suddenly this business you started for freedom starts to feel like it's running you. Today's guest knows that journey better than most. Heidi Luerra spent 2 decades building raw artists from $0 at her kitchen table into a multi-million-dollar Inc. 5000 company with 65 employees and offices around the world. And in this conversation, she shares what she learned building something that big from nothing, including the moment every founder faces. When you realize the real challenge of entrepreneurship isn't starting, it's learning how to simplify enough to scale. Let's dig in. I loved your book. I got to know you a little bit better, from your humanitarian heart to your authenticity, the willingness to tell it like it is and open your heart and your life to make a difference for others. It's a book for artists in business, but really it can apply to any bootstrapper, any entrepreneur who's starting from nothing and entering into this crazy journey of entrepreneurship. You have it in the background.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got one beside you too. Okay, there we go. The work of art.
The subtitle is a no-nonsense field guide for creative entrepreneurs.
In the book, you touch on what many of us creatives go through. We have divergent brains. And so that tends to come with gifts and with curses. Do you think that makes it more difficult for the creative brain to scale, to simplify? Because we overcomplicate things.
Like you said, they can bring gifts and then also curses. But the gifts, I think, are typically some delusion, which you need if you're going to build anything, some grandeur, which you need to have this like delusional confidence that what you are creating or building is going to happen. And what, especially in business, and especially if you're going to go the distance and have a longevity of any sort, you need that kind of fuel from a mental standpoint. But it also comes with misunderstandings about how business should work, or sometimes people felt entitled to a certain amount or believed that they were deserving of making X amount of dollars per hour just because they worked on this thing. I think for the most part, you need a little bit of mental instability to start a company or to create anything and put it out in the world, for sure.
Talk a little bit about Raw. Just give an overview of that business that you built. I'm curious how that all came about.
So Raw Artists is the largest international independent arts organization. And I started Raw when I was 24 from my kitchen table with $0, probably negative dollars if I'm being honest. Like I probably had credit card bills. But I grew that to a multi-million-dollar Inc. 5000 fastest growing company. I had 65 employees. We had a giant office in downtown Los Angeles. And then we had 3 other satellite offices in Toronto, Canada, Sydney, Australia, and Mexico City. And so we threw events in 70 cities around the world for independent artists year round. And our events had anywhere from 800 to 1,200 attendees and 80 to 100 different artists showcasing their work in film, fashion, music, and art. So layers upon layers of complexity, layers upon layers of logistical nightmares, in order to make sure we were running like a well-oiled machine, we built our own proprietary tech product at the center. And so my husband, who was my later partner on this business, is the web brains behind it. And so he was able to take what I needed logistically, and he would turn that into a web application. And before we knew it, we had a proprietary tech product at the center that was a full planning, production, promotional software, as well as a whole ticketing suite. So we had built this online, offline platform. We were a very mission driven organization. We had over 200,000 artists that showcased with us, over 1 million attendees. We had hundreds of contractors, a huge staff. And it was 11 years straight. This is what I did with my time every day. Everything was raw for me. I woke up thinking about it and went to bed thinking about it. And March 12th, 2020 was our 11th birthday as a company. And so we had bought a cake, we had champagne, we had a much different day planned. And that was the day that LA mandated everyone go home. And so I had employees that had worked for me for 7-8 years at that point that I like gave them an air hug, and I have not seen them to this day. We went through an entire period where we saw into the future. I read a lot of documents. I did a ton of research. I was reading World Health Organization papers, and I figured out that this is going to be a longer process. I was like, okay, we've got to make some moves. So we pivoted the company over COVID. We simplified our tech products so that anyone could use it, not just our team for our specific use case. And I pivoted the company to a licensing platform where people could use our technology and our trademark, and they could go throw their own raw events wherever was open to throw raw events. And what happened to my work week was it went from 60, 70 hours a week to 4. And it coincided with me having children. So that worked out really well. And then where it is today, I exited as a CEO about 2 years ago, quietly, about a year ago publicly. And for the last 5 years, I've been advising and investing in startups and small businesses. And still, I own Raw 100%, but it's just a different dynamic now. And simplifying, talking about scaling and simplifying, I've done both. But peace is like very important to me these days. And building a business and having 65 employees and hundreds of contractors, and just you have a fire or 5 every single day, is not really where I want to live my life anymore. I think I maybe had some more energy for that when I was younger, but I'm 41 now. I want to go to sleep at 8 o'clock. I don't want to be up worrying about a bunch of stuff. I think I was in that camp for a period, but call it aging, call it turning into a mom, call it whatever you want. I'm still the same person. I just value different things at a season in my life.
When you wrote the book, you were not married and you didn't have kids yet. Knowing what you know now as a mother, as a wife, how do you create success now where you can't maybe do some of the things that you did before because of the life you have now?
I know that just by the nature of the world and chaos, there's some type of fracture in a life before and a life after. Mine coincided with kids, and it coincided with COVID. So it was like my whole life had leveled so I could build it back up the way that I wanted. So I did get forced into a situation where I had to reimagine what I wanted my life to look like and what this next season was going to be for me. Ultimately, I think success looked different in every season of my life. In my 20s, and as I was building Raw Artists, I definitely associated success with having $1 million in the bank and being able to like do whatever I wanted, making sure that the company was running well, making sure that my employees were happy, my customers were happy. And then as I've gotten older, I honestly feel more successful now than ever because I've designed my life in a way where I can spend the maximum amount of time possible with my kids. I can work and I have fulfilling work. I like to joke like moms work faster than anybody because we have a limited amount of time. My perfect day looks like maybe 7 hours of sleep, waking up, working out, having breakfast with my kids, sending them off to school, being the one that gets to drop them off, coming home, working a full day, getting to have dinner with them and play with them, having a date night once a week with my husband. My success is more, my definition of it has changed to a more balanced approach rather than just working all the time. And I'm sure when I'm in the next season, as I age, it's going to be like walking up my stairs. So I'm just trying to savor this season, be present as much as I possibly can, knowing that everything is temporary. And life keeps teaching me that, like nothing lasts, nothing.
You've had a lot of experience now. You invest in startups and you also run this fabulous boot camp for startups. And again, it's just so no nonsense, Heidi. That's what I love about it. You touch on every single foundational element that a business owner needs to look at, hopefully before they start their business or as they're just building it. How did you design the boot camp? And what do you want people to get from it?
The framework for it came actually from writing my book, because that was my first time I sat down and thought through all of the things that I did or didn't do as I was building my business, or the things I did that I shouldn't have done. And so having that framework was the jumping off point. But COVID was the impetus, because I had friends that were in the entertainment industry, like I was, in events and things of that nature, that worked for large companies that were being laid off in droves. And they were like, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to start this business that I've been wanting to start. Okay, I need to talk to Heidi. So I was getting called like organically from friends that were ready to start their thing because their life had just turned upside down. I took the lessons that were in my book and I put them into a structure of what I wish I knew before I started, what my lifestyle will look like when I start this business. That is the number one thing that I tell all entrepreneurs that are about to start something or are dreaming of starting something. It's make sure you can stomach the lifestyle that's going to come with that. And also make sure you understand this is going to be a 7 to 10 year journey. Are you ready to get pelted in the face for 7 to 10 years before you realize anything fantastic? It is the most high growth experience you can have, is building something from nothing. And from every facet of your life, spiritually, physically, it's very hard to be balanced when you're building something. I don't personally know anyone successful that has not had that period where they've really ramped it up. I make sure that I'm talking to these people with bright ideas that want to do this thing, giving them the dose of reality first. I would walk through the practical steps. I very much start from numbers. I'm a numbers driven person. I want anything you build to be something sturdy. And I make sure that we look at everything from a place of unit economics. Whatever product or service you're building, can you find profit within the individual thing you're selling before you scale it up? Because that you don't want to scale something that's losing money. The book was really the framework. I took my time testing it, like with real people that I could benefit. I started charging one client at a time. As I scaled that, our local city of Temecula had an opportunity, and I submitted a very robust roadmap. And I said, I'm happy to teach the businesses locally. And that's how that ended up happening.
In your book, you talk about how there was a period where you didn't sleep. You were working like 90 to 100 hours. And you hear about that in hustle culture all the time. What I see with founders and through my own experience is that without structure, that can turn into chaos and burnout.
Yeah, I am a meticulous systems organizational freak. And that's probably why we were able to scale. I didn't really realize that until later, reflecting on everything. But I've always been that way.
Do you buy into that theory that really to scale, simplicity is required?
I do think you have to simplify to scale. I just think that the road maybe getting there starts with a lot of complexity first before you realize it. As human beings and as entrepreneurs, we tend to complicate things more than necessary. Understanding what you want is number one, and that is the hardest process, but the most simple process to start on your journey to where you want to go. I like to work backwards. And the one thing that I tell every entrepreneur, every creative, every artist, whatever that I've worked with is it's like you have to get to the core of what you actually want. And that's hard to do thoughtfully because it takes time. It's not something you can really rush. Not a lot of people pause and just ask themselves, what do you want right now out of your life, out of your career, out of your family? Sit down and think about it. Do you want to, how much money do you want to make? Put a number to that. Why do you want to make that much money? And I go through what I call shimmying whys, really understand, like, is this ego driven? Why do I want to make this much money? What is it going to do for me? Again, simplifying what I want and why I want it. It's much easier to achieve when you know what you're aiming at rather than just wandering around and bumping into things. It's not sustainable and doesn't give you that longevity.
You know, something Heidi just said is so important, and it's something I see with founders every single day. Entrepreneurs don't usually fail because they lack passion, creativity, or even work ethic. Most of the founders I meet are some of the hardest working people on the planet. What they were never taught were the fundamentals of building a business that can actually support their life. How to turn vision into strategy, how to turn creativity into systems, how to turn hard work into sustainable growth. And that's exactly the work I do with founders. If you're listening to this and you're building something you care deeply about, but it still feels chaotic, overwhelming, or like the business is running you instead of the other way around, that's the work we solve together. Inside my one-to-one coaching and in the Alignment Lab, we help founders align their purpose, strategy, leadership, and performance so their business can grow without sacrificing their peace, their family, or their life. So if this conversation is resonating with you, there are a few different ways we can work together. You can explore all of those at inspire-bp.com. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
In terms of what it looks like to simplify to scale, we really started with more of the foundational pieces. The first piece being be clear about what you want and why. The second part, like you said, the reverse engineering. So that's the second part of my process is pathway. So you have purpose and vision. How are you going to get there? A lot of people have the vision. I know I want to be there in 5 years. That 5 years is a very long gap. And you can throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall and waste a lot of time and energy and resources. And so I like to think, and I believe your boot camp does this as well, it really saves a lot of heartbreak and energy and money and time getting to the basics first.
Yeah.
So that is what your boot camp does. It's a no fuss, no muss. These are the foundational pieces to build your business on.
Yeah.
And then from there, you've got clarity and you've got a solid foundation to build. Another thing in terms of simplification is to map out your journey from the future.
It's great to have goals, but the question is how do you
That's right.
thing? And then you need to put an action in. It's if I want 6-pack abs, I need to do crunches every day. What do I need to do? When do I want to achieve these abs by? Okay, let's work backward from that date. Do some math, right? Like how much would I have to do? How fewer calories would I have to eat? And then I break that up by month, by week. And you can do the same thing with your finances. You can do the same thing with the business you're building or wherever you want to go. It's just taking this macro thing and breaking it down into bite-sized pieces and things that you can do to move the needle daily. I think where people have a disconnect is sometimes they don't think about that foundational layer underneath. Design your best day. How can you design your childcare, your eating schedule, or the time you wake up, or the things you can control best so that you can achieve all those things. And life feels quite balanced when you're able to check those boxes that like are fulfilling to you. I think on the theme of simplifying to scale, I think it's getting your mindset around the things that you want to do in their most simple form and why you want to do them, and try and remove the ego from it. Try to remove who's looking or who you're trying to compare yourself to, and like really ask yourself whether this is what you want. And then put the systems in place to do that. It's all about the systems. And then you got to follow the systems. You got to do the work.
Again, it's keeping the why in mind for that clarity.
Keep running it through that filter. You have to keep your eyes on that. And look, it could change, and that's normal too, but keep having that conversation with yourself. What are the sacrifices that you need to make to get there? And that's what I don't think enough people think through. And then sometimes you can get too far down the road and you're caught, and you just have to keep feeding the beast, and there's nothing you can do because you built something and you didn't really think through the lifestyle, and you didn't really realize what this was going to require of you. And now you have a lot of people dependent on you.
And you have a business and you have a life that is no longer yours.
What I love about this conversation with Heidi is that it reminds us of something every entrepreneur eventually learns. Building something meaningful takes vision, courage, and creativity. But scaling something sustainable requires clarity, structure, and a willingness to simplify what really matters. Heidi has lived that journey from starting raw at her kitchen table to building a global organization, and now helping founders build businesses grounded in real fundamentals. If today's conversation resonated with you, I highly recommend checking out Heidi's work. You can visit her website, explore her Substack, and learn more about her upcoming boot camp that's here in Temecula, California. We've linked everything for you in the show notes. If you're a founder listening right now who knows you're ready to bring more clarity, alignment, and sustainable growth into your business, check the show notes for the link to my website and book a call with me. If you know a founder who needs this message right now, please share. Also like, subscribe, and tell me what you love about the show. Until next time, welcome home. Welcome to the Inspired Entrepreneur.
And every time I'm falling, I go to new depths. I will become who I've always been.
And because I care about you and want to keep things above board, here's the quick legal bit. The Inspired Entrepreneur podcast and the contents posted by Deborah Hartnett is presented solely for general information, educational, and inspirational purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It's not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional diagnosis or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay obtaining medical, mental health, legal, or business advice for any situation, and should seek the assistance of qualified professionals for any such conditions or decisions.